This is the Thera Podcast, hosted by Drs Martin Wesley and David Whittinghill.
Welcome to another edition of the Thera Podcast. This is Dr. Martin Wesley. I'm glad you joined us. I'm also here with my host, Dr. David Whittinghill. How are you doing, David?
Very well, Marty. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably wondering where we're at. We haven't really posted much over the holidays into the new year. So I thought we would, let's talk a little bit about that, but also not only about the present, but maybe about the future.
I think that's a good idea. I imagine most of our listeners are wondering where in the heck we've been and why we haven't been posting any episodes lately.
Yeah. I think while we didn't plan this, one reason that I think I'll mention why we stopped. We had a lead in for actually a final podcast with about my story. And we did record it and everything, but again, we're in how can I say this? We're in a sort of a dangerous world right now for anyone that is trans, for anyone that, the rhetoric out there is just horrible. And so while I did mention that I have a son adult son that is trans, and again, I think he was open with that. There is a part of it that scares me and him about the potential of getting the message out too far. So anyways, we sort of pulled that one back, and I think we started to reevaluate where we want to go in the future, related to many different things. Anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out. So.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. And we had to make a lot of decisions about how to go forward and what would be the best way to go forward, considering that the world right now is so polarized.
Yeah. And again, I don't mind talking about that, but at the same time, I'm also concerned about my own kids. And again, we want to challenge people, but we also don't want to offend also. And that's sometimes a hard, a difficult task.
Yeah, it is a difficult line to walk.
When you're looking back on, again, we just started this last year. When you're looking back, what are some of the things that we did well as maybe some of the things that you think we want to improve in the next season?
Well, I think we did a really good job. We had a lot of listeners that tuned in to our gatekeeping episodes and our conversations about how counselor education programs and counselors could actually be better at their jobs. Yeah. And so I think that part of our podcast worked very well. I think what was missing, as we've discussed, is we weren't really shining the light on some experiences that counselors have and aren't talking about, that are mostly in the shadows now. Most of the information now that's on podcasts and the like is about client experiences, how it's difficult to get into counseling, how to get a good match in counseling, so on and so forth. But what's been unique about ours is that we focused on the practitioners and, how they could be better, and some ideas that they hadn't thought about how to go about it in a different way. And I think it was your idea about including storytelling in our season 2 that changed everything.
Yeah.
About our upcoming podcast seasons.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that. I really enjoy listening, like when you were talking about your addiction journey, for example. I thought that was very helpful. I think when we share ourselves, I think that's good, but I think that they're also hearing us do commentary. And I think if we included others' stories, more of their stories, and different clips, and then with us adding our commentary, I think that would be more entertaining. And that's what I'm hoping as a goal for this next season, is it's more entertaining for people.
Yeah, I think that would be more exciting. It would be something that I would tune into. I mean, after a day of listening to clients and carrying a caseload of 20 to 30 clients a day, I mean, their time is limited. And what do they want to actually listen to as they, decompress?
Yeah.
And what can they benefit from that, wasn't taught in the classroom or they didn't receive in their supervision, or they don't have that information readily at hand at their current place of employment. I want to hear those kind of things. And in particular, different people's stories about, how they came to be a counselor, for example, those kind of things.
No, I'm always fascinated by, again, real people, real stories, and us actually talking those issues out and trying to come up with some insight from those stories. I know that you have one example of probably one of our first stories to start out this new season.
Yeah, we do. And it's my wife. She was a police officer for over 10 years and had an experience on the job which changed her perspective totally. And as a result, she became a mental health counselor. So from the perspective of, I don't want to say that, I don't want to speak for her, stereotyping people and looking for evidence of certain behaviors that were harmful to the public at large. Now she's more interested in how to help those people avoid making those mistakes.
Yeah.
And so it's a totally different perspective. So it gets to the question, you always want to hear stories about it. Like, why do we become counselors? Are we hardwired to be counselors, or is there something else?
Yeah. No, I know, for me, at least, as an example, I did some child protection work many years ago, and you have to think and act and behave very differently when you're in a enforcement type role. And again, I'm really looking forward to that first episode that we have featuring your wife, but also other individuals that have been law enforcement officers and now are primarily counseling individuals that are from that from those occupations of military or law enforcement or something along that line.
Sure. But, that's one example of the stories I guess we'll hear. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of others. From a lot of different diverse backgrounds. For example, I would really like to hear how from counselors who are working with involuntary clients from diverse backgrounds about how they provide those services and provide multicultural counseling in a situation that's not necessarily open to that. I mean, when you're convicted of a DUI, you get certain counseling requirements, and you're supposed to go lockstep through a particular step that the state or government has set forth. And I just want to know those kind of things. And fortunately, I think if we use a storytelling format, we're more likely to get those kind of things and hear from those kind of people.
Yeah. No, and I have a lot of stories there too. I know you do too. We've been around a while. So, but again, I think adding their stories will add color to what, to even, our own experiences. And maybe these stories will change our minds. Very possible, because that's where I want to be challenged at times. There, for example, the involuntary clients. I mean, I have some very strong opinions on it because I've worked in that area too, but I can be swayed. I can approach clients very differently if I think and can be persuaded by some of these stories. So I'm looking forward to that myself, to challenge me.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway from, if there's anything to be said about season 2 of our podcast, that's it.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be swayed by other people's stories in an entertaining way.
Yeah. We want to be challenged. I mean, one thing that I'm really curious about too, and I'm looking forward to, is I hope that we, through stories, there's vulnerability, and I really want to hear some of these vulnerable stories. I want to hear how maybe even a therapist that has, they have this impression, and we all do to some degree, that we're experts in this field of human relationships, and yet we struggle sometimes in our marriages and our sex life and with our children and so forth, and we have to maybe seek out counseling. And I'm sort of curious about those experiences too, if people would be willing to talk about those. I think that might also allow others to be vulnerable and share their stories, or, to just be honest with it. Because I think the best counselors, in my own opinion, are those, in a sense, wounded healers. The recognition that we, don't have it all together all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. And so it's exciting, and do we want to talk about how we're going to solicit these kind of stories?
Well, I should have been more prepared, but I know that if you are, following, or we're following you or something like that on Facebook or something, obviously you can probably see our form out there. I am going to try to post our form, our interview solicitation form, whatever we want to call it, on the www.therapodcast.com. I will put it there as well. But yeah, just reach out to me or you by email. However you can get a hold of us, we'd be glad to hear your story. And yeah, schedule you for an interviews, and then we'll get you on live.
Yeah, that sounds perfect, Marty. And Facebook and the Therapodcast would be a great way to go about that, and have that form up for folks to fill in. And then, I'd want to say that what we're looking for are these kind of stories that would sway us and sway others. If anybody out there who's listening to us has a story that they think is profoundly important, and they want the world to know about it, I think, this could be the format or platform from which you can launch that idea or tell your story.
Well, and I would even say, and I know you mean this too, it doesn't even have to be profound to you. It may be profound to others. Sometimes, for example, just the idea that you were struggling in your marriage while you were going through a divorce and trying to make ends meet while only getting paid what a therapist makes. That's a story. That's a story, and it really connects with us because we have probably been there at one time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I meant in terms of profound.
Yeah. No, it is profound to us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Yeah. So even I think when Angela talks with us, your wife talks with us, I think on this first edition of her podcast, that's going to be, I think, one of those profound things. And I hope people don't realize we don't need that intense of a story.
Right.
But, yeah, your story is important too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while her story is probably more unusual than others, there are some, I would say, profound insights into. It's just not every day that a cop says, "Hey, I'm going to," or somebody in the military is going to say, "This is not for me, and I'm going to help people instead of policing them."
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think our goal is next year is maybe to have maybe less podcasts, maybe once a month. I don't know. I don't even want to say, because we may have 3 in a 1 month. I don't know. But I really want to do a good job for people so that they are entertained and really gain some insight from these stories.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal for us.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can live up to it.
I'm also excited about we're going to get a new intro and outro for our podcast. I'm looking forward to telling everyone about that, you guys hearing it, and maybe giving us some feedback too. So we'll have that for our next edition as well.
Great.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. No, same here. So. Well, sounds good. We got a plan, and hopefully we'll be getting together very soon, and I'm looking forward to these interviews.
Yeah. I will submit some of those forms out on Facebook, and hopefully folks will chime in and give us some stories.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, David, we'll be talking soon.
All right. Bye, Marty.
All right, take it easy. Bye-bye.